Day-to-day operations are my responsibility, which means if you become a problem, you get sent to me.
Another new apprentice, I see. Are you of the sort that believe you're here to change the world? Or are you only in it for yourself? I assure you that I shall be watching you, all of you, very closely. Your superior and I were simply having a discussion about my level of access to the college. Well, perhaps that is why you're merely an apprentice here. Nothing you need to concern yourself with. I shall be quite capable of observing everything that goes on here. Now that stability has been established between the Dominion and the Empire, we seek only to help Skyrim, to guide its people through this time of transition, to help lead them to a better future. I am an advisor to the Archmage. The Thalmor wish to promote relations with your college. I am at the Archmage's disposal if he requires advice. Perhaps not as often as he should. In time, I believe he will be more trusting.
Welcome, welcome. We were just beginning. Please, stay and listen. So, as I was saying, the first thing to understand is that magic is, by its very nature, volatile and dangerous. Unless you can control it, it can and will destroy you.
Sir, I think we all understand that fairly well. We wouldn't be here if we couldn't control magic.
Of course, my dear, of course. You all certainly possess some inherent natural ability. That much is not being questioned. What I'm talking about is true control, mastery of magic. It takes years, if not decades, of practice and study.
Then what are we waiting for? Let's get started.
Please, please. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Eagerness must be tempered with caution, or else disaster is inevitable.
But we've only just arrived here. You've no idea what any of us are capable of. Why not give us a chance to show you what we can do?
You've been quiet so far. What do you think we should do? Is that so?
See, he agrees with us too. Why don't you actually show us something?
All right, let's settle down. I suppose we can try something practical. In continuing with our theme of safety, we'll start with wards. Wards are protective spells that block magic. I'll teach you all a ward, and we'll see if you can successfully use it to block spells, all right? Would you mind helping me with the demonstration? Are you at all familiar with ward spells? That's all right. I can teach you a very basic ward, one that's enough for the purposes of this lesson. Now, if you'll just stand right over there, I'll cast a spell at you, and you block it with the ward. Here we go. Over there, please, just opposite me. Wouldn't want anyone else in the way. Now, cast the ward spell, and keep it up. Hold still. Excellent work. Well, I think this is an excellent start. I'd like you all to continue practicing with wards, please. I think perhaps we're ready to begin exploring some of the various applications of magic throughout history. The college has undertaken a fascinating excavation in the ruins of Sarthal nearby. It's an excellent learning opportunity. I suggest we meet there in a few hours and see what awaits us inside. That's all for now. Thank you.
What you learn here will last you a lifetime. Several of your
You are new, yes? Have you mastered the expert-level destruction spells yet? Ah, this is good. But Jezal will know them first. It is good to finally be around mages who may be able to keep up with Jezargo. Oh yes, Jezargo hopes to find things that will make him a more powerful mage here. Hopefully small things that fit inside pockets and will not be noticed if they are missing. Mages in Cyrodiil are all about politics. The Synod and the College of Whispers are too busy guarding secrets to bother to teach. Skyrim was not Jezargo's first choice, but Winterhold is removed from politics, dedicated to study. This is the place for Jezargo to become great. Oh, but you are wrong. The only reason you could disagree is because you are losing so badly you cannot see it. There is much for Jezargo to be sure of. There is skill in magic, there is charm, and there is a strong will. Jezargo will be successful. Of this there is no doubt.
All right, then.
You are relatively new here, are you not? I have noticed you, but we have not spoken. Then allow me to introduce myself. I am Savos Arin, Archmage of the College of Winterhold. I am quite content to see nearly any aspect of magic explored and investigated here. But I do not and will not approve of any research or experiments that cause purposeful harm to your fellow members of the college. Are we clear? Not often, no. Some risks must be taken, to be sure. I am simply trying to avoid untimely deaths. We also must make an effort to avoid worsening what Skyrim thinks of us. Purpose? I should think it's self-evident. Magic is a true power, not something to be shunned by commoners, or treated as an amusing diversion by politicians. It shapes worlds, creates and destroys life. It deserves proper respect and study. The college is a place where we can focus on that, without the pressures of the world weighing down on us. I've seen documents dating back to the late Second Era. Beyond that, it's hard to say. Events in the last several hundred years resulted in a significant loss of our history, I'm afraid. The Great Collapse, as it has come to be known. An unfortunate natural disaster that ravaged the area. The college fared far better than the city of Winterhold, but it was not left untouched. No one is sure of the cause. Some believe the eruption of Red Mountain had far-reaching consequences that were only felt years later. I know there are some who have blamed the college, said that we were responsible. I assure you this is not the case. The Sea of Ghosts practically came alive. No one was expecting it. Monstrous waves battered the shore for weeks on end. Winterhold was ancient and weathered, but it couldn't withstand the sea's fury. Entire districts of the city were lost overnight. The waves receded in time, but the damage was irreversible. Most residents of Winterhold abandoned what was left of the city. The college survived, and so here we remain. Until next time. If you require assistance with summoning techniques, please let me know. If you would, please also contain your summons to the college grounds. The locals do not need to be agitated further by Atronachs roaming their town. The summoning of undead is even less advisable outside the college. By sure no. Those archaic policies died out with the Mages Guild, and were never enforced here. Necromancy, as any other type of magic, is a tool to be used. Of course, non-mages may not see it that way, so we don't go around flaunting it. Not within society, no. Many who practice within the School of Conjuration do so on their own, secretly. Falion is the only one I know who is public about what he does. He was once my teacher here, but left the college years ago. He didn't like the Archmage, hated dealing with him, hated having to answer to him. Falion said he hated what this place was becoming, so he just left. Arin found a note on his desk, and that was it. I understand he settled down in Hjalmarch, and his presence there caused something of a problem. Ah, that, yes. The group prior to yours has disappeared entirely. It's possible that there was less than the necessary amount of oversight. That's still being looked into. But we've had no contact with them for quite some time now. Arniel wondered if perhaps they'd somehow managed to get themselves lost in the Outer Realms, but I think that's giving them too much credit. I hadn't really considered it in terms of time. I suppose it's been at least a month. Let me think. What were they working on? As I recall, Ysra was trying to improve flame cloak spells to better work in Skyrim's harsh environment. Elos Tai was practicing illusion spells. She was having trouble with the calm spells, I believe, but only ever worked with skeevers. And then there's Borvir and Rundi, twins, though they rarely agreed on anything. Those two boys were obsessed with mead, convinced they could concoct something to compete with Honningbrew. Something about using frost magic to chill the mead for a certain period of time. I felt it was a waste, but the Archmage let them proceed. Oh dear. I had particularly high hopes for her. Once she had overcome her difficulties, she could have been quite successful here. No. And after what you've discovered, I fear the worst for them. Until next time.
heard in the Dark Brotherhood they assign a listener just so people can vent their problems. I'm Master Groshub's apprentice. While I've been trained in the library arts, at the moment, my duties are rather limited. There isn't much that Master can't handle already. I'm more of an understudy, someone who takes over if and when he retires. Which, at this rate, will be anywhere between someday and never. No, and it's not an exaggeration. I know Master Groshub looks old, well, because he is. Way too old for an orc. The rumor around here is that he's immortal, as in, he measures time by the era. Which means, unless I start a competing library, I'm stuck being an apprentice forever. And who do you think the college will blame? The only girl in town who stands to gain from his death. No thanks. I'll just play the waiting game and hope Master Groshub chokes on a Horker loaf. Recently, I've been tasked with updating the college dictionary, which is a thankless but important job. Dictionaries are critical tools for preserving language, and they allow future generations to communicate with their ancestors. Not necessarily. Master says spoken language is a living, breathing organism, always evolving and shedding old skin. In contrast, the written word is both living and dead. It's filled with babies and grandparents. My job is to introduce you to them. Just one. In the interest of efficiency, Master insists that I only make updates when there are at least 10 new words worth adding. Well, if he's going to be so rigid about it, I'm going to speed the process by developing some of my own. Sure. You know how people use animals as verbs or gerunds? Like ferreting out, or squirreling about, or wolfing down. Well, I thought, why not apply the same logic to trolls? I find trolls to be very fierce, but honest creatures. The way I see it, trolling could mean stating your opinion, but with honesty and passion. You know, the same way a troll fights. Well, sort of, I think. The Arcanium is a very prestigious library, with many of its books going back to the Second Era. The more delicate tomes are kept under lock and key, but you're welcome to browse the outer collection at your leisure. Master Groshub has a list of books unfit for the collection. Frivolous works by academic standards, but still interesting reads. Talk to him if you want more information. All right, then.
I don't want to see you treating any of these books poorly. Are we clear? You are now in the Arcanium, of which I am in charge. It might as well be my own little plane of oblivion. Disrupt my Arcanium, and I will have you torn apart by angry Atronachs. Now, do you require assistance? A mage is only as good as what he knows. I try to make sure as much knowledge is available as possible. We've been keeping this collection since the Second Era. Books have come and gone during that time, but it's mostly intact. Of course I do. If I didn't, most of these books would have been burned to ashes or dissolved to nothing before the Third Era. Mages need to be reminded to be careful around research materials. If you're feeling adventurous, I'm always looking for someone to procure valuable books from some more dangerous locations. Well, all right. Here. I scribbled down the last place I'd heard about. Check it out, but be careful. As a matter of fact, there are. Have you ever heard of Shalador? Immensely powerful mage, back in the First Era. Had an understanding of magic few have ever matched. He holed himself up in Labyrinthian, and devoted all his time to research and study, but more than you would imagine possible. Since then, his writings have been scattered all over Skyrim, but are little use to anyone who can't translate them. I'm one of the few who can. I've heard whispers of more of his work having turned up. If you can track it down, it may prove useful to all of us. Until next time. Hundreds of years have gone into assembling this collection. It's going to stay pristine, understand?
Greetings. Confound it all! This page too! That makes 5 in total. This is unacceptable! A page from one of these texts, and 4 others, torn right from the spine. I've consulted with Urog's apprentice girl, and she insisted, rather emphatically, that none of these tomes have been checked out for years. I told the girl that wouldn't preclude a thief from browsing the cases. I don't blame her, though. It's the head librarian's duty to keep more sensitive texts behind sealed doors. Or perhaps it's the fault of the one who trained him. In either case, the result is the same. It is as I feared. Someone has managed to steal key pages from the writings of Trectus. Shalador created Labyrinthian, and his imprint echoes across Skyrim. But I speak of another. Trectus is the birth name of Vanus Galarian, former Sigic monk, student of Iachasis, and founder of the Mages Guild. It is not an error. It's far more likely that Urog holds an opposing position regarding the substance of these texts. Not to mention a stubborn refusal to recognize that a controversial theory might actually have merit. The majority of scholars are split between 2 disparate camps. Some believe the texts are worthless scribbles written by a child, one who had yet to grasp the vastness of his destiny. Others contend that the author is not Vanus himself, but a pretender hoping to profit from the mage's name. Both camps, however, are in agreement that the texts themselves have no intellectual merit. There are some, however, who attribute the text to a different origin. Not the young Trectus, but the elder Vanus Galarian. The theory states that Vanus wrote the text in the guise of his younger self, precisely so that scholars would question its authenticity. By diverting the eyes of those who seek power, it provided an extra layer of security, in addition to the cryptic nature of the text itself. I mentioned the pages from 5 separate texts were stolen. This is no coincidence. I'm sure you can divine why. Exactly. According to the theory, there was purpose to Galarian's decision to divide his childhood journals into 5 parts. Contained within each was a tale that alluded to spells and techniques authored by a specific school. It is well known that Galarian's gifts for magic were quite diverse. He could restore a rose to full bloom not long after burning it aflame, all the while fooling the mind into believing its scent had rotted away. The theory goes that Galarian was on the verge of completing 5 new spells, 1 for each school. Spells of such tremendous power that even the immortal armies of Manimarco would countenance their fear. Unfortunately, Galarian's obsession with his nemesis deprived him of his patience. Nevertheless, before he embarked on the great battle, he left notes encoded in 5 works, so others could continue his research. I have an inkling. I was able to glean some clues based on my interviews of the residents of Winterhold, who seem far more observant of mages than the faculty. I sent my assistant, Jado Ra, to investigate the matter further, but I fear something grave has befallen him. Finally, someone with initiative. I need someone to scout the area he was investigating. Your safety is paramount. If the mage in question is at the site, do not attempt to confront him, even if Jado Ra is in imminent danger. The Khajiit is a crafty one. He will leave clues behind even in death. Yet if you sacrifice both your lives, both your efforts will be squandered. Good. Jado Ra last left for Solitude, but it is unlikely he is still there. I would start with the caverns near the shoreline. If you find him, and find him well, he may ask for a passphrase. Yes. The problem is, I seem to have forgotten that inscrutable Khajiit word he gave me. So in exchange, I ask you to tell him this. Tell him how, when I met him, I mocked his whiskers, how they were as black as an Imperial's hair. Tell him that his eyes are so narrow that even when he laughs he looks unhappy. Yet their color still shines as bright as the sun. And if he finds that too sentimental, tell him he was more valuable as a rug. And when he accidentally lights his fur on fire, he would no longer be worth anything to anyone. Greetings. My name is Olivia Moronin, a former member of the Mages Guild at the Arcane University in Cyrodiil. When the guild disbanded, many of my colleagues regrouped to form the Synod. However, their objectives do not align with the tenets Galarion and the Council established when they founded the guild. Nor do they abide by the teachings we have stood by in the centuries that followed. Theirs is an organization based on cupidity and lust for power. I have not ruled that out, although the Synod seems more interested in securing existing artifacts of power. Galarion's research, while potentially powerful, was still incomplete. There is no guarantee that any of the 5 spells can even be crafted. This is not to imply that documents are not dangerous. The secrecy of Galarion's methods are a substantial indicator of the level of risk. However, the Synod does not have the patience nor the foresight to recognize what these texts represent. My name is... When the Guild... How... Nor do they abide by the teachings we have stood by in the... You flatter me, but... Not all of us can have childhoods as interesting as Vanus Galarion's. If the Divines are good, no one ever will. Each book is a cleverly crafted tale that hints towards the ideals of a particular school of magic. However, the overall narrative is unimportant. From what I have gathered in my time here, it seems the school of magic is simply a mechanism. For instance, I found lighting a text with an alteration spell revealed a hidden message written in an ink altered to mimic a human soul. Of course, without the knowledge to light the aura of life aglow, the mage's search would end there. The chain continues until one reaches the destination, the final pages that contain detailed notes on the crafting of a new spell. I'm afraid not. The texts are evidence, and the methods Galarion used to encode the journals must undergo further study. Once I have informed Urog of his omission, he will add the works to this library's collection, along with the missing pages, should they be retrieved. If you have scholarly interest, however, I can share with you the 5 tales of Galarion's youth. They are quite interesting. As a young child, Galarion's father bought books from smugglers in order to teach his son how to read. As serfs of a minor nobleman, Lord Jeunesse of Solikik-on-Kur, such knowledge was strictly forbidden. Galarion recounted how his father taught him to avert his eyes at every signpost, and to speak with improper diction. Most of all, he warned him not to reference the tales he read, but more importantly, the cities, beasts, and forests contained therein. For the spell would be broken the instant their lord realized the boy knew things his eyes could not see. Galarion's mother was an old-fashioned woman, one comfortable with her station. She never wanted to deprive Galarion of knowledge. She was, however, fearful of the consequences. A seed of dread was planted in her mind, and grew into a forest of despair. It was only a matter of time before her husband or her child would slip and betray their literacy. In truth, Lord Jeunesse suspected nothing, but in her reality, she saw her husband on the gallows, and through her actions, she made it true. Vanus's father died from the crime of literacy. He was hung, his body left out for weeks as the sweltering heat bubbled the skin of his fetid corpse. The effigy itself was gruesome, but so was the cruelty of Lord Jeunesse. He forced Galarion to scrub the gallows every day, as his father hung lifelessly above him. He held the lessons of his father close to his heart, and never spoke an indignant word, no matter how callously the nobleman prodded him. However, if one stayed awake past the dead of night, one could hear the violence echoing from the basement of the servants' quarters. Vanus Galarion once ran with a group of troubadours. They performed from city to city, regaling crowds with their song and flair. One of them was a former jester, a man with deft hands. From out of the ether he would withdraw a bouquet of flowers or a septum from your ear. However, it was the group as a whole who cast a spell on the young boy, drawing a smile that had been lost to the void. As a child, Vanis Galerion escaped his birth home of Solikik Kur. He simply crept out of his quarters one night and ran. He never stopped running. He had trekked halfway across the Somerset Isle when he reached the shores of Alinor. There was nowhere left to run. Exhausted, he collapsed in a ditch. It is there that a band of troubadours found his body and nursed him back to health. They employed him as an errand boy and gave him food and shelter, and the life he had seemingly lost was somehow returned to him. As you will. The college itself is a breathtaking wonder, a citadel of knowledge, standing high over the waves of ignorance. It is a fortress of higher thinking, buttressing its residents from the storms of indolence. However, while the students show an alacrity to learn, I am not entirely fond of the professors, who seem far too concerned with their own research. Although the necessity for research is vital, their failure to involve students in the process is disheartening. Whether it is fear for their safety or disinterest educating them, I cannot brook such a gross disinterest in the instruction of young minds. Only Tofter seems interested in performing his duties responsibly, but I have reservations in the manner with which he carries them. Farewell.
Are you here to check out a book? Talk to Master Groshep.
There are few places where one can pursue my type of work without fear of persecution. Spells and incantations for those with the talent to cast them. Until time.
Please don't bother the Archmage unless it's absolutely necessary. If there are any problems, let me know. It's my job to keep things running smoothly. There are no expectations. This college is a place to study and practice magic freely. Hopefully any discoveries made in your pursuits will be shared with the members of the college first. That way, we all benefit.
You know, they say knowledge is its own reward. You can see me? Confound it all, I was quite sure I was invisible. Or at least transparent. There may be a matter in which your skills could be useful. The various points of focus for magic energies around the college have become polluted and need cleansing. I see. All right, then.
You consider restoration a valid school of magic, worthy of study, don't you? Don't you? Good, good. Not that I require validation, of course. There are just some, and I shan't name names, who would disagree. It can make life difficult when one's colleagues fail to recognize the research one engages in. Well, no, not really. Not directly, I mean. But I know things are being said behind my back. Conversations cease when I enter rooms. I'm quite aware of what's going on here, and I will not stand for it. Until next time.
Let me give you a bit of advice. You want to work on something that's not officially allowed? Don't tell anyone you're doing it. You need something you're not officially supposed to have? You come see me. You tell anyone that I told you, and I'll fry you from the inside out. Got it? Huh? Good. Even with the college's laid-back attitude, there are still some things that are off limits. Purposely killing your fellow college members is a bad idea. I'd advise against it. Theft and assault can get you into trouble as well. As for research, well, a sufficient explanation will cover almost anything. If you're going to need live test subjects for your experiments, it's easier to do that off of college grounds. All right, then.
Oh, there was a great rumble outside this morning. Did you feel it? Surely it must have been a giant riding a carriage, or a flying ship. Yes, but that's far too ordinary. Maybe not yesterday, but now, very much so. Unless it was a water dragon, a dragonfish whose breath was steam. Of course, it's more fish than dragon, and more bug than fish. It feasts on wood, and its diet consists solely of mortal-made ships. Oh, I would never try anything like that. Won't even drink a bottle of ale. I need my mind absolutely clear so I know what I see is real. The field of unknown and undiscovered magic. It seems odd that there are only 5 schools. There should be at least 500. How else can you explain all the magical phenomena in this world? Doomstones, alchemy, and dragon shells, for instance. Those can't be categorized by any of the 5 schools. But Magnus's imprint is everywhere. Some say it was he, not Lorcan, who made the world. His departure made the sun, and when plants use it to grow, they use magic. All the energy on Mundus is related to Magnus in some form. Oh, plenty. Although they all sort of relate to magic in one way or another. For instance, I was trying to build a more secure coin purse by trapping your gold inside a soul gem. Oh, yes. It was a bit tricky getting the conjuration trap to recognize inanimate objects as souls, but a dash of blood and harmonizing the resonance did it. The problem was getting the gold out. I tried enchanting a couple of wooden coins using the gem, but they lost the Imperial markings. Oh, that would work, although engraving them would be too difficult. You can't just use an imprint like with metal. But I've heard there are these beetles in Black Marsh, mirror beetles they're called, that learn to chew tough bark by watching their mothers. If we could train these beetles to chew in a pattern that matches a septum, no, it's brilliant. Oh, all the time. Especially at the college where magical energy is strong. Floating objects like books, soul gems, and silverware for one. You really have to watch where you're going or you might run your eye into a fork. Then there's the multiplying fruit. Master Drevis thinks the several hundred apples he found in his pillow was a prank. I think it was a rare form of spontaneous cloning. Clearly some type of plant-based magic, like an evolved form of alchemy. Of course. I bet in places like Valenwood there are all sorts of carnivorous plants that use magic to capture their prey. Like a plant with invisible fangs on its fronds, trapping birds and insects who stop to rest their weary wings. Or how about a talking plant who uses magic to mimic speech? A stamen is almost like a tongue. Then you get real close and the fangs chomp you. That is, if the mud monsters don't get you first. Plants must have some version of the undead, raised from the ground by magical spores and such. Farewell.
Please don't bother the Archmage unless it's absolutely necessary.
You know, they say knowledge is its own reward. Mm-hmm.
Mirabelle does a fine job as Master Wizard, I suppose. Still, there's always room for improvement. I can't wait to see who succeeds Mirabelle. I've no doubt she'll be promoted to Archmage at some point. She what? Oh, I should have known she'd try it again. Thanks for warning me. I'll see to it this is taken care of. Certainly a few of my colleagues aren't quite as talented as they'd like to believe. See you around.